ಈಗ ಮೈಕ್ ಎನೇಬಲ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡೋದೆಲ್ಲ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಸೊ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಮುಗಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಎಂಡ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್,
ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂಡ್ಗೂ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ?
ಎಂಡ್ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ.
ಇಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಅದು ಕ್ರಾಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೋದಲ್ವಾ? Welcome to Bhatt and Bhatt Tutorials. Greetings of the day. I am Sheshadri, faculty for 10th grade ICSE English Literature. Today we will be doing a play by Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice. What we will be doing is the Act 1 and the Scene 1. Dear students, before we start with the play itself, we will first go through the important characters that are there in the play, so that we know what part they are intended to perform in the play when their characters come up. First one is Antonio. Antonio is a wealthy Venetian merchant who occasionally lends money but never charges interest, since his main source of income is from his ships. He is the merchant of the play's title. He is basically not a money lender, he is more of a shipping man. But he, at times for people in need, he also lends money, but he doesn't ever charge interest. And he is the, when we say merchant of Venice, it is Antonio who is the merchant of Venice. Bassanio. Bassanio is actually, he is a nobleman. He is a typical Elizabethan lover and nobleman who is careless with his money. Hence, he has to borrow from Antonio so that he can woo Portia in style. Which means he can influence, he can attract Portia in style. So it is to take forward his love story or his love affair with Portia that he needs money. He has to go to the place where Portia leads, and he has to go in style, he has to be well dressed. So that is where his need for money comes. The problem with him is he does not have that much interest in earning money, and he is also at the same time careless with money. But he is a noble man, he is from a noble family. Portia. She is the main heroine of this play. As one of Shakespeare's most intelligent and witty heroines, she is famous for her beauty and for her wealth. And she is deeply anguished that she must marry only the man who chooses the single casket of 3 which contains her portrait. Actually, her father has passed away. She is a very rich person, Portia. Her father would have put this condition. And when we come to that part, we will also discuss that in detail. He would have put a condition that there are 3 caskets, and the one who chooses, and only in one casket, her will be the choice who will marry her. And the trouble for Portia is she has to choose only the person who who chooses the right casket. Her further portrayal we will see in the coming part of the play. Shylock. Now, Shylock is an intelligent businessman. I would say he is in fact a ruthless businessman. He is very ruthless when it comes to money. He is an intelligent businessman who believes that since he is a money lender, charging interest is his right. And to him, it makes good business sense. The Duke of Venice. Now, when towards the end of the play, when the matter goes to court, he presides as the judge over the court and over the court proceedings in Shylock's claim on Antonio. Basically, Antonio would have lent money. Shylock would have lent money on Antonio's guarantee, and when Antonio refuses to pay it, Shylock approaches the court. The Prince of Morocco, one of Portia's suitors, one of the persons who is trying to ask for Portia's hand in marriage, and one of the people who he loses the opportunity to marry her when he chooses the golden casket. Out of the 3 caskets, he has to choose one, and he chooses the golden one, but he loses the opportunity. The Prince of Aragon, he is also another disappointed suitor. He chooses the silver casket. He is another disappointed suitor for Portia's hand in marriage. You know, this act of a line of men trying to win a lady for marriage is like the Swayamvar of our Hindu mythology, like it is there in Ramayana or like it is there in Mahabharata. What we call as Swayamvar is a similar thing. Gratiano, he is the light-hearted, talkative friend of Bassanio, who accompanies him to Belmont. There he falls in love with Portia's confidant, Nerissa. Nerissa is actually Portia's maid. And he would have gone with Bassanio, and there he falls in love with Portia's maid. Lorenzo, he is a friend of Antonio and Bassanio. He woos and wins the love of Shylock's daughter, Jessica. In fact, they elope, they run away from home, from Jessica's home and marry. Jessica, she is the young daughter of Shylock. She falls in love with Lorenzo, and disguised as a boy, she elopes with him. Dear students, one thing we need to remember, both in the case of Shylock as well as Jessica, is that they are Jewish. They are not Christians, they are Jews. And historically seeing, we will also see it in the play, Jews, because of the history, they have a dislike for Christians. Now, here it is a Jewish girl, eloping with a Christian boy. So that is a tragedy which happens to Shylock. Nerissa, she is Portia's maid, and she is a lady in waiting. You know, all these wealthy ladies, they used to have maids with them. So she is a lady in waiting, but she is a very merry and sympathetic lady, in the sense she understands Portia's needs very well. Celarino, he is a friend who believes that Antonio is sad because he is worried about his ships at sea. Dear students, here in this whole play, Antonio is projected as a person who is sad, who is kind of depressed, and he himself does not know why it is so. And Celarino is one of his friends. Celanio, he is also another friend of Antonio. He thinks Antonio's melancholy or sadness, it may be caused because Antonio is in love. Salerio is a messenger from Venice who goes to Belmont. Launcelot Gobbo, he is a clown or a jester, and he is a servant, the young servant of Shylock. He is about to run away because he thinks Shylock is the devil. Eventually, he leaves Shylock's service and becomes Bassanio's jester. So he walks out of Shylock's home. Old Gobbo is the father of Launcelot. He has come to Venice to seek news of his son. When he leaves Shylock's home and comes to Venice, he leaves Shylock's home and comes to Bassanio's home. His father comes in search of him. Tubal, he is a friend of Shylock's. He tells him that one of Antonio's ships has been wrecked. Leonardo is Bassanio's servant. Balthasar is the servant whom Portia sends to her cousin, Dr. Bellario. Dr. Bellario is a lawyer of Padua, and this person, Balthasar, takes a message from Portia and goes and meets Dr. Bellario. Stefano is one of Portia's servants. So that was the list of characters. So let us now begin the Act 1, the Scene 1 of Act 1. Now the location of this Act 1 and Scene 1 is in Venice. It's a street in Venice. You have three people here in this scene: Antonio, Salarino, and Selanio. So it begins, dear students, here when we are presenting the play, the left part is the original text, that is in the original Shakespeare language, and the right side, which is in another color, is the modern English. So I will be going through the original text once and the modern English text next. So Antonio, in sooth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you, but how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff it is made of, whereof it is born, I am to learn. And such a want-wit sadness makes of me that I have much ado to know myself. So basically what he is saying is, you see the English part, to tell the truth, I don't know why I am so sad. Now he is a man, Antonio is a man, is depressed, but the cause of his sadness is something he says he doesn't know. I am tired of being sad, and you say you are tired of it too. He is actually speaking to both Salarino and Selanio in this. But I don't know how I caught, found, or came by this sadness, what it is about, or where it came from. And since I don't know anything about the sadness, I clearly have no ways to go in understanding myself. That is what he says, that I have much ado to know myself. I myself don't know who I am, because I am unable to get rid of this sadness. Okay, students, here Shakespeare in this play, he has chosen Antonio, that Antonio is portrayed in this melancholic way. That is what the author, that is Shakespeare, has projected him in this particular way. He is a rich person, but in this particular situation, he is a sad person. Salarino, your mind is tossing on the ocean, there where your argosies are ships, which portly sail like signors and rich burghers on the flood. Or as it were, the peasants of the sea do overpeer the petty traffickers, that courtesy to them, do them reverence as they fly by them with their woven wings. Salarino is actually trying to explain to Antonio as to why he is sad. So he begins it this way: your mind is focused on the ocean where your merchant ships are sailing like rich, important men parading on the sea. Now, Antonio is and the ships of Antonio are large. They are huge ships compared to what they say, what he is telling in the text, original text, as petty traffickers. By petty traffickers, they mean boats which do a small kind of trade, whereas Antonio's ships are large. That's why they tower over the little trade boats that they pass by, sailing along, and it is as if the little boats bow before the greatness of your ships. Now, obviously, the smaller boats, they will be moving because of the waves, whereas the larger boat will be more steadily floating. So that is why it is like the little boats are bowing before your ships. That's what Salarino is saying. Then Salanio also adds to this, to what Salarino said. Salanio is also adding his thoughts. Why Antonio is feeling sad? He says, "Believe me, sir, had I such venture forth, the better part of my affections would be with my hopes abroad. I should be still plucking the grass to know where sits the wind, peering in maps for ports and piers and roads, and every object that might make me fear. Misfortune to my ventures, out of doubt, would make me sad." Salanio is also adding further to what he said, what Salarino said. He says, "Believe me, sir, if I were involved in a trade venture like yours, most of my mental energy would be with my ships as well. I would be pulling up shoots of grass to use them to chuck the wind." Now, what do they mean by this is they would like throw the grass upwards, and whichever way the grass falls, they would know which way the wind is blowing. Please remember, in those days, they did not have any modern navigation tools. They did not have radar. They did not have radio. They did not have weather forecasting. So it was in those times, the only way they would get news of what happened to a ship is when another ship in the opposite direction comes and lands in the port of origin. That is how they would get news. Otherwise, those days, communication was a big problem, and that is what even Salarino as well as Salanio say is making Antonio sad. Further, he says, "And any little thing that might make me worry that something bad would happen to my ships would make me sad without a doubt." So both of them are of that opinion, that it is because of the ships Antonio is sad. Salarino again adds to this. He says, "My wind cooling my broth would blow me to an ague when I thought what harm a wind too great might do at sea." Broth here is it's a soup. You know, when we drink hot soup, if it's too hot, we blow on it. So he is comparing that to the wind. "I should not see the sandy hourglass run, but I should think of shallows and of flats, and see my wealthy Andrew docked in sand, veiling her high top lower than her ribs to kiss her burial. So we'll see the modern English version. I would get upset blowing on my hot soup because it would make me think of what a strong wind at sea could do to my ships. When we are drinking soup, or even when we are drinking something very hot, in order to cool it, we blow it. What Salarino is saying is, when he thinks of the wind, that the wind is cooling the soup, he thinks of what a strong wind at sea will do to the ships. And he says, if I saw the sands run in an hourglass, I would think of flat shallows where my ship, the Andrew, run aground with all its riches and flipped over, completely done for. In the ocean, there are places where there are flat shallows. I mean, where it is land itself, where the sand itself has come up. By misfortune, if a ship were to run into one of the shallow, it will get grounded. And once it gets grounded, it will flip over. Obviously, where there is sand, there will be rocks. And what happens is, once the ship turns over, whatever it is carrying will turn over. That is what Salarino is saying. He further says, should I go to church and see the holy edifice of stone and not bethink me straight of dangerous rocks, which, touching but my gentle vessel's side, would scatter all her spices on the stream, enrobe the roaring waters with my silks, and in a word, but even now worth this or now worth nothing. What it means is, there is a huge treasure on the boat or on the ship, and the moment it will get grounded and it will topple and everything falls off, suddenly all the treasure is lost. Shall I have the thought to think on this, and shall I lack the thought that such a thing bechanced would make me sad? So he is now also telling why he would also be sad if he had a ship on the high seas. In English, in modern English, it is, if I went to church and saw its stone construction, I couldn't help but think of dangerous rocks that could break the sides of my ships and scatter valuable spices all over the water, causing my silks to fall out and drape on the waves. Because of lack of information on the whereabouts of the ships in those days, this kind of concern was very natural. He says, even if he goes to church and sees a stone, he is thinking of the rocks that his ship would can collide, and once it collides, it will definitely topple. He further says, they are worth so much and would all of a sudden be lost and worth nothing to me. How could I think of such things and not get sad? So both these people are trying to convince Antonio as to why he is sad. But Antonio has got a different picture about himself. But tell not me, I know Antonio is sad to think about his merchandise. It is still Salarino which is continuing this, that, but you don't need to tell me. I know that Antonio is sad because he is worrying about his merchandise. They are convinced. Salarino and Celanio both are convinced that Antonio is sad because of his merchandise. But what does Antonio have to say about this? That we will see next. Antonio, believe me, No, I thank my fortune for it. My ventures are not in one bottom trusted, nor to one place, nor is my whole estate upon the fortune of this present year. Therefore, my merchandise makes me not sad. Now, Antonio is he is actually not agreeing to the reasons given both by Salanio or as well as Salarino. What is he saying? He says, believe me, you are wrong. Thank goodness, not all the merchandise is in one ship or any one place, and I haven't risked all my riches on this year's venture. Therefore, it is not my merchandise that is making me sad. He says, I mean, he's a thorough businessman. He says, it is not that my entire life depends only on these few ships that have gone sailing in this particular year. And it is not that all my ships have got only one destination. The destinations are different, so that even if something were to go wrong, with one ship, definitely the loss could be made over by the other ship. So that is what Antonio is saying. To which Salanio says, why then? You are in love. I mean, to see the English part, we say, well then, you must be in love. He says, if it is not your business venture that you are worried about, then it must be love. It must be a girl. To which Antonio says, 5. Basically, he means it is nonsense. Nonsense means, he says, there is absolutely, it's nothing like that. So it is not a business loss worry, nor is it a girl. So what is Salanio next saying? Not in love neither. Then let us say you are sad because you are not married, and it were as easy for you to laugh and leap and say you are merry because you are not sad. So Salanio is again, they are also trying to cheer him up, or they are trying to give him reasons as to how he can try to get out of the situation. So here he is saying, you are not in love either. It is not your business problem. It is not a love problem. He says, then let us just say you are sad because you are not happy. It would be just as easy for you to laugh and jump around and just say you are happy because you are not sad. So he says, please try the reverse. You are saying you are sad because you are not laughing. You use yourself. You are not positive. He says you can do the reverse. I mean, you can laugh and jump around and say you are happy because you are not sad. He says you can do the reverse if there is no particular reason as to why you are sad. The whole idea is being friends. They want Antonio to feel better, or to bring him out of his melancholy. That's the whole point here. Now by two-headed Janus, nature had framed strange fellows in her time. Janus is actually a Greek god who has got two different faces, different directions. So nature had framed strange fellows in her time, some that will evermore peep through their eyes and laugh like parrots at a bagpiper, and others of such vinegar aspect that they will not show their teeth in a way of smile. Though Nestor swear the jest be laughable. So here, Selanio is trying to explain the kind of people that are there. In this case, he is giving a reference to Janus, which is a Greek god. Like I told you, it is a two-headed god in two different directions. So, like if one face is sad, the other one can be happy. So he also is differentiating the nature of people in these two ways. He says, I swear by two-headed Janus, nature has made all kinds of different people. Some people are always happy and could even laugh at a funeral. We, dear students, we see that this is a very common occurrence. There are people who are generally very cheerful. Come what may, even in the worst of troubles, they are cheerful. Whereas that is one type. And who is the other type? He says, while others are so sore, they don't even crack a smile at anything, not even at a joke that Nestor called the funniest. Nestor is also a person who was serious, but even he would laugh. But there are some people who would not laugh even at a joke. So, and these are the people who are always sad. So that is what he is saying. So basically, what we have seen till now is they are trying to bring out Antonio out of his melancholy by trying to explain. Dear students, we will be ending the session with this. I will be giving you some questions till this part in the Button But app. I'll be loading the questions. So you will, in 2 or 3 days, you will have to answer those questions and upload it again. Any doubts, please contact us on these numbers, or you can send a message in Button But Tutorials, the mobile app chat section. Thank you.